Hi folks, I was asked to do a few videos on the pole lathe. So I'm going to start with how you make a blank. So taking a log and then moving forward from there. And I'll go over a little bit of chainsaw work and a little bit of axe work with that too. My name's Jeff Kuchak. I also carve under the name Storm Spoons. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook with Storm Spoons. Why Storm Spoons? I only use storm damaged wood. The trees, they're under attack with everything. So that's why I will only carve and only sell things that I've carved from storm damaged trees. Chainsaw safety starts with, for me anyway, making sure that I'm geared up. That includes safety glasses, it includes ear protection, hand protection, and chainsaw chaps. The chaps are a great tool, but once again, they only work if you're wearing them. They'll stop a blade from cutting you. I've seen some bad injuries from them. I've come close a few times. So I like to gear up before I get started. So I'm gonna get that stuff geared up. Chainsaw wise, I'm using a Husky 353. I've had it since 2003. It's a great saw. I found that running the True Fuel through it is probably the best choice that I've made. I don't have to worry about anything happening with the carb or with fuel lines eroding with the ethanol or anything else like that. So let me get geared up and I'll show you what I do. So the first thing that you need to be aware of is how big do you cut the rounds when you're trying to make a bowl. What I try to do is I measure the round side to side. So that's about 9 inches. And what I'll do when I cut it is I try to add a little bit to it. Now you can see my chainsaw was a little bit dull, so it was cutting at an angle. But what I normally try to go for is anywhere from 1 inch to 2 inches bigger, because you're never sure what you're going to find in the woods. And that works for smaller blanks too. So if you're going to turn some smaller bowls, same thing. Just add 1 inch or 2 at the end and then you'll be good. Piece of birch that might even be almost pretty much gone. It's looking a little rough inside there. But here is the center. This is from here to here. It looks like that's where kind of the pith is. You want to make sure that no pith is in the bowl. I definitely want to get that out of there, and there's that little branch there. So when I cut this, what I'll probably do is I'll probably, cut here, and I may try to cut one there to try to maximize this. If it's a little bit smaller one, this one's, and you can see where the center is here. And you can see I'm starting to get some radial cracks because this has been sitting a little while. So I'm gonna try to avoid those cracks and I'll cut it there. Normally, I would cut it right here because I would just knock out that little bit there and there. So, depending on the freshness of your wood, you can probably get away with leaving that extra inch in there, but because this is getting a little bit older, I'm gonna have to cut that. Now, as far as wood wise, what I'll do is normally, if it's maple, I'll let it sit a little bit to mellow, maple or beech, but most of the other ones, cherry, black walnut, I'll start turning as soon as I get it. That way, I'm not letting it go bad. One thing that you're gonna see that is a really, really big help is this little V-notch log. So this log, it starts here and then you just have a little notch in there. And what that does is, you can see I've used it a lot. It cradles the log really nice. So when I'm slicing up and down, I'm not worrying about the log rocking on me. So one of the first things that I would make if I was going to do this a lot, especially with the chainsaw, is just a little V-notch log. That way you'd be all set up to go. Now I'm probably going to cut 3 logs today. I have the cherry, I have the birch, and I also have some aspen there. The aspen might be a little bit fresher. I don't know. It was out all winter, so we'll play it by ear. I just have not had a chance to hike up on my mountain and get some cherry that came down this winter. Now with my log too, you can see I'm using pretty much a really smooth pencil on this because this is dry. If this stuff was wet, like so if your wood's really wet, when I was taking a class with David Fisher, he recommended watercolor pencils. And I have to tell you, these things work great, especially on really, really wet wood. You can just draw on there and the color stays, and it doesn't really, it'll wipe off if you wanted to, but especially on wet wood, boom, it'll stay there. Now I'm going to slice these, and you know, I'm not sure, sound wise I'll probably turn the sound off so that you're not blasted by the chainsaw noise, but this way you can see me cut a few blanks out, and then I'll move on to the next step. I should say at this point that these are set up for bowls, not plates. I'll do another video about plates later on. So my next step is now to use this compass that I have. What's nice about this is there's two metal points in it, and it really makes a nice mark in there. So what you want to do next is, once you have your bowl blank, which I have here, now comes the game of making sure that you can get the maximum amount of bowl through here. And that was pretty good on the first try. Normally it's not that easy. So what I do is I check it, and you can see I have it away from the edges just because I'm not sure what's in there. So I press pretty hard with this and I scratch it right into there. I'm not worried about, you know, not hurting the bowl, and I'm trying to definitely make sure I know where that center point is. Once I have that done, this is when those watercolor pencils are great. I mark my center point, and then I go right along and I mark exactly where the outside of my bowl is. So once again, I'm going through and I'm trying to find the best parts of the log that I can when I'm turning. And that looks pretty good inside there. I'm a lot happier with the inside than I was. So let's try this one. This one I can see there's a big bump right there, but I don't know, maybe it'll turn out nice for us. So let's open these up again, and I'm going to try to find somewhere in the middle and see how that is. And you can see this one's off a little bit. So what I normally do is I go about halfway, I open it up the other way, and then I test it. And I say, okay, that one fits pretty good there. Just in a tiny little bit there. And that should work. So I tighten it down, and then I check it side to side. And that looks pretty good, because you can see I'm missing that little tiny knot in here. So this isn't, whoops, what happened there? Oh, so I didn't tighten it down enough. which is why I also like using the pencils, because then I can make sure that I hit the right mark. There we go. So this birch here, this isn't exactly white birch, it's what you would call gray birch. And so it's going to have a lot of like little pinholes in there. It's a very, where white birch is a really nice log to turn, this one has so many little branches kind of coming off the side. Sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't. So I'm going to really watch that little spot there, and then I mark my center point. I'm going to come down to these little ones now, just so that you can see. If you're working on practice and you're trying to just get into turning, you know, starting with smaller blanks is a great idea, because you're not wasting really good wood and trying to make really big blanks and getting tired. So when I first started, I did a lot of little turning so that I wasn't getting exhausted with just learning the mechanics of, hey, this is how the tools work, this is how my body has to work, this is how everything else has to go with it. So sometimes the small ones come out really nice too. You can use them for little things here and there. But once again, I'm just going to go around, mark where they're at, and this one should be the same. Let's see. A little bit bigger it could be. There and there. And then, whoops. Where did that go? You gotta watch with the jumping. Sometimes they like to jump right off on you. So I'm gonna keep going around and around and around. And then dig that center point in. You wanna know where that center point is, because the way that I mount them is using a drill bit and a piece of dowel. That way it doesn't really slide around too much on me, and if I know where that center point is, that makes the next step a whole lot easier. Okay, last one here, and that way you get the idea of it. This way, when I'm showing you some turning tricks, I actually have some wood that is usable. So let's see, let's try that and that. I can actually go a little bit more right to there. Oh, what happened there? Right to there. Let's see, that one's good, that one's good. Lock it down. Give yourself a nice turn. That way you can get that in there. Aspen's okay to turn. It's not my favorite. My favorite, I love turning black cherry. I like turning walnut. But black cherry and probably black birch are my favorite ones to turn. Sugar maple, like I said, wait a while. Sugar maple affects me just turning it. I end up getting a really bad sinus infection from it, so I've kind of avoided sugar maple lately. Okay, once we have this, then there's two different ways that you can do this. One is use your axe everything out, and move on to that step. Or you can go to the step that I'm going to do, which is the chainsaw. Of choice is the jaw horse. I like the fact that I can step on it with one foot and I can lock it in place. You can see I modified mine just a tiny little bit. I added 2 pieces of 2x4 inside there so that I wasn't hitting it. Every now and then, sometimes I ding it up a tiny little bit. And once I started putting the 2x4 in there, it helped me out a lot. So let me show you how to get started, and then I'll run through a couple turns. Once again, this is a time to get geared up with the different protection and stuff that you need. You can see the way that I put it in there. The reason why I put it in there this way is I cut down to about there, and then I'll flip it and I'll cut it again and I'll cut it again. I find it's a lot easier to get started at the top and then just work my way down. Yes, this has a little bit extra in there, and normally I would have cut it a lot closer on the sides, but sometimes we have to make do with what we have. So the next step that we're after doing the sides. So we're going to leave a high spot here, and we're going to try to get this stuff knocked down, because we don't want to have to turn through all that. If you think of your bowl as this is the high spot and it's going to curve up, we want to come up to that lip. So I have it with the really thin sides, so the tree itself is going this way and it's getting squished in there. So then I can come in with the saw and I can just go cut, 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 and then cut, cut. So I'm just making 3 cuts on each side, and then I'll be done. It leaves a finish very similar to the axe, where you have your facets in there. So let me get suited up and I'll show you what to do. So now that most of the waste wood is gone, what I'll normally do is I'll go through and I'll just do some axe work. So this is when I like to go back to my V, because I can set this in here, and once again I'm just slicing right through those. Knock the bark off, get that cleaned up, and you can see over here. So hopefully the way that's slicing through, hopefully the tools will leave a nice finish on that. And then what I normally do is I knock a flat spot off on the back. I find it's a little bit easier to help me mount it. Now these spots right here, these ridges, those are not fun to turn over. So if you just kind of come through and knock those down a little bit, when you hit them with your tool, it's a lot better. So once again, I'm just kind of slicing through those, getting rid of those. I'm not really trying to make it a finished surface because that's what my tools are for. What I'm just trying to do is knock down anything that when I look at it, I can see it and say, okay, that's going to be a problem. There's a couple little spots here and there on the ends, a little bit of end grain here and there. That's going to be a little bit of a pain, but we'll turn around it. But this way you have your facets. And that way, once it's mounted and you're turning into it, it's just a lot less wood to be able to turn. And it saves your legs, it saves your arms, saves your back, saves everything with that. So let me grab another one and I'll kind of keep going with that. So once I get them from this stage, if it's summer, you know, or even winter, I throw them in a plastic bag. You know, shopping bags, grocery bags, that's what I use most of mine for holding wood blanks in there. And then that way they're all set up and ready to go. As it's almost ready to rain today, I'll just throw them in a plastic bag. Once I'm done, it'll be good to go. But you do want to get that bark off. And like I said, I find it a little bit easier to mount the bowl once I have a flat surface in there. And I'm just trying to knock some of those spots down. And that's not too bad. Let's see. What I have here is I have a big kind of chunk. You got to be really careful right here because it wants to split right through there because of the way the grain's running. So go halves and go slow so that you don't knock that off. I've damaged a couple bowls by being just a little bit too aggressive there and taking a little bit too much off. So there's kind of that turtle shell shape. You have a flat spot, you have your facets, and it comes down to the rim. So one more to go and then I'm done. Those smaller ones, I'm not going to axe them because they're going to be really hard to hold. Now, if something like this happens, which I'm kind of glad this happened, you leave a little bit of a ridge in there. Just slide your axe right down and you can blast right through them. So just follow that where you were making your cut and then they're gone. Now this piece of birch here, this isn't feeling too good. I could feel it when I was cutting it. That it just felt like it was shattering versus cutting. We'll try it, we'll see what happens, but I am guessing that this one is just a little bit too far gone. I think that other side was pretty good. But, you know, sometimes you'll have stuff like here where, once again, just go slow, take tiny little bites. You're not trying to tire yourself out right before you're turning. So what I'll normally do is I'll do a blank day where I make a bunch of blanks and then I'll go make sure my tools and everything else are sharp and then I'll turn the next day. So once you have these, stick them in a bag and you will be good to go. My next video I'll show you some mandrels and I'll show you how I mount them. So have a great day. If you like the videos, you know, like it, subscribe. I'm not going to blast through a bunch of videos. I'm not going to be selling you a bunch of stuff. If you are confused on something, please leave a comment. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can, or I'll do another quick little video to zoom in on some stuff if I went a little bit too quick with that. I'm trying to remember all of the little nuances and things like that that you might need. It's kind of tricky going back and saying, okay, this is what I first learned and this is what I keep using. But for the most part, this is how I start a bowl turning week, where I'll make a bunch of blanks, get them all set up, and then that way I just have to turn. and I don't have to keep coming back out and cutting and cutting and cutting. Now, as far as all the waste, you know, you generate a lot with this. So what we do with all of this is this will go out into the woods. It'll get broken back down into forest material for all of our plantings and other things. Logs that we can't use, for example, this one has a big old branch on this side. That's why I didn't use that side. The logs like that will split up. We have a wood burner for our maple syrup, so we'll use that for maple syrup, or we'll use it for other things, and then we throw the ashes back out into the woods to help with the forest. So all the products truly get used and sent back to where they came from. So have a great day. Thanks for watching the videos. If you have any questions, please, once again, let me know. Thanks.